Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie. I'm here with my husband, Jim, and we have an episode that we really want you to listen to. And if you're not going to be the one to listen to it, we want you to get your high school student to listen to this episode because we are going to talk about some things tonight that a lot of people aren't willing to say out loud. So the first thing that we're going to cover is basically how we always tell kids that there's a path that they need to get on, and that path is going to make them become productive members of society. And we're going to talk tonight about how that path is not as clear as it might have been a long time ago. And then we're going to kind of debunk the fact that the path has really never been clear. We're going to give you some set examples of how 20 years ago, when we were doing things, we ended up taking different paths. So listen in, and if you're not going to stay for the whole time, get your kid to listen to it because I think that they need to know some of the realities that they're about to face when they get out of high school. So again, my name is Maurie. I'm here with my husband, Jim. We are educators. He is an engineer. I am an educator. And let's jump into this episode. Okay. So I went and spent the weekend with my daughter and my granddaughter and my son-in-law in Austin. Had a great time with grandbaby. Came back and you were like, I read or actually listened to a podcast.
I listened to a podcast from Nate Jones, which I listen to quite often. But his focus was the new Apple CEO. The fact that he comes from a hardware background. Apple has been getting hammered for quite some time. Tim Cook, the former CEO, about the fact that they didn't do well with AI.
Yes, they were not ready.
They weren't ready.
We kept sitting back, and it's kind of like for a long time, OpenAI happened, and then Anthropic, and then Gemini jumped in, and like Microsoft, and we kept waiting.
Gemini was Google.
And then Microsoft was Copilot. But we kept kind of waiting for the Google one to catch up. That's why I said Gemini. We kept waiting for Google to catch up. And we're like, they're the sleeping giant. They're the sleeping giant. Well, they kind of did. But we also kept talking a lot about when is Apple going to get in the game?
Yeah, we thought Apple was going to come out with they had a little sputter here and there. But anyway, the point is that Nate thinks that Apple, with this new CEO, and they're going to have a new direction, and their direction is one that I 100% agree with, which is why this caught my attention.
Okay, so before we continue with kind of what we're talking about, why do you agree with Nate?
Because because I'm an engineer, and engineers think they know everything, but it's the direction I was taking. It's the direction we had discussions 3 years ago with Intel about this particular thing. The direction I always said was, it was going to end up being a hybrid, meaning that you weren't going to have everybody wanting to use the cloud. You weren't going to have everybody wanting to use local. Local is not as powerful. It's not as good. The cloud has privacy issues. It has cost issues. So when I started from day one, 3.5 years ago with Agnes, I started out with this idea of how do I build this hybrid, and we have internal tools that we use today that I put in 2-3 years ago
that are all local.
That are local, like speech to text, text to speech. And I also thought student training was going to end up being some local stuff. We were going to want to show them the difference between the power of the models and stuff. So I believe this from day one. And what he thinks is that Apple is not ever going to become a frontier model company, which is what they call OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. Their frontier model, and then XAI, I guess, is to some degree as well. But Apple's never going to be that. And they've always been more of a hardware company than anything anyway. They deliver very polished hardware, software.
Beautiful hardware.
And he thinks that that's the direction they're going to go. Intel started like that, but Intel has always been terrible at marketing. Mm-hmm. They rely very heavily on their relationship with Microsoft. And so they don't do a good job of marketing what they were doing because they had us do it as part of a talk when we were in San Diego, where they were talking about these using local models. Anyway, so that's what caught my attention. And it kind of led to us having a very passionate conversation because, it's why wouldn't you do that instead of actually just watching TV?
Yeah, that's because I'm married to you, I guess exactly. Is why I don't watch television.
It's the hybrid thing. Nate was talking about the hybrid thing. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so the reason that we went down the path that we went down is because we immediately started talking about the future of jobs. And one
Because
of
we
the
work in K-12.
because we work in K-12, and it's our job to help educate kids that are coming out of 12th grade, and they're making these decisions about where they're going to go and what they're going to do. And some of the things that you were talking about earlier was the types of jobs that everyone is saying that AI is taking all of these jobs, and they're taking all of these jobs, and everyone's like in a panic because of artificial intelligence. And I keep telling you that there's a lot of jobs that are going to be created.
Well, we've been talking about it for a while. We talked about it at A&M, opportunity versus efficiency AI.
Yes.
And the opportunity is where those job creation occurs. Now, if you think about it, in my opinion, it's idiotic for all these CEOs from these companies, like Sam Altman from OpenAI, for example, to constantly focus on the job losses.
Mm-hmm.
How does that help you? You're freaking everybody out. You're freaking people out. So what we're talking about is everybody's freaking out. So what do we think it's going to be? Let's help with the freak out.
All right. Well, first of all, let's talk about a couple of real world experiences that we've had in the past where the market, has started moving a little bit more toward artificial intelligence, and they're utilizing artificial intelligence, but it's actually helping them in their jobs. They're not getting rid of people in their jobs.
Again, the opportunity AI. So you're talking about that's kind of recent history for us. But
well, yeah. I mean, we had a carport built, and the contractor, and this was 3 years ago.
Yes.
The contractor that was doing the carport was already utilizing an artificially intelligent app that he had on his phone to do stuff in his contracting business.
Well, I mean, you think about it, the guy's he's a one-man show.
Most of the time.
He brings in people as he needs them, but he's pretty much a one-man show. So he's going to be really into the efficiency AI, but he had already started moving somewhat toward the opportunity side because he wasn't just doing it for bookkeeping or, or job handling his job schedules. He was actually using it to help him with his work.
Right.
It was limited, and he said it was.
Well, that was also 3 years ago. I'm very curious if I could sit down with him now, which, I do have a couple of projects that I'd like to get done around the house. I might have to call him, but I'd like to see where he has taken that concept. Okay. The other thing is I took a picture of the side of our house the other day, and I put it in my AI, and I decided on the paint colors, and I decided on trim color. Mm-hmm. That's all the stuff that AI is allowing designers to do. Mm-hmm. We just finished a big bond project, and we at the school were utilizing artificial intelligence to take the statement of works that we've been given and putting them into an AI, and then saying, "Give me it's the punch down list. Give me what it is."
I created a checklist for us to use because I've done this. This was your first bond.
My first one.
3 or 4. And I can't tell you how hard it is to create those stupid checklists.
Right.
When you have some of the documentation you get from these people is 100 pages long.
Right.
And so to be able to take the AI and ingest it and then help it create a final checklist. I mean, you call them punch lists. I call them checklists, but I think they're called punch lists. But anyway, it was very helpful. I think the key thing, which we're going to talk about in a minute, what we've talked about there is not a new job title. It's an enhancement to, or a change. Enhancement may not be what everybody thinks, but it's a change to a blue collar job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, carpentry work, the architectural firms obviously have people that are not considered blue collar, the architects and things like that. But a lot of the people we dealt with were installers, people that were coming to do work. Again,
sheetrock workers and bricklayers.
People that installed AV equipment. These were blue collar, considered blue collar workers as well. And it's a difficult enough job to do what they do. And with all the stuff going on around them, having a tool that can help them ingest the changes and understand how it means in the bigger picture, it's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
I wish the contracting firms did a better job of it because they certainly didn't give us access to a tool that had AI. The blueprints, I can't read blueprints very well. To me, they're extremely confusing. So for us to have access to an AI built into a blueprint would have been awesome. Anyway, I got us off track. Continue.
Yes, you did. So let's talk about the shift, the shift that's going to be happening, and it has already been happening. And this is what I kind of brought up at the very beginning. This shift is only being exacerbated and are revealed by artificial
And
intelligence
to some degree blamed on. I
and
mean,
blamed on
it's an
artificial
excuse.
intelligence.
There is a lot of places where it's just an excuse to lay off people.
So let's talk about the shift.
Okay.
So the shift right now is it's not white collar workers versus the blue collar workers. That's not necessarily where the shift is happening. It's the routine work
Task oriented.
versus
Yeah.
the judgment work.
Yeah, I mean, task oriented stuff, it's kind of a tricky thing to think about because installing AV equipment or working on an automobile is task oriented, and AI doesn't replace that. So the first things that get replaced tends to be the task oriented stuff that already in the digital world.
Let's talk about that for a second, because we were just saying that when we were young and you placed a long distance phone call in Llano, Texas, the operator had to patch you through.
I thought that was normal.
And that was a very task oriented job.
Yes, and
She had to literally pull out the little plug thing and
just like in the
plug
movies.
it in, just like in the movies. Okay.
No, I was not raised in the 1950s, but it felt like
it felt like it. But that's a task oriented job. When I used to call a doctor's office, I had a receptionist answer the phone. I was the receptionist. Hello, this is Dr. Kane's office. How may I help you? Okay. That was me. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it is
That's too bad.
an answering system, and it's not AI.
Yeah,
Some of them are becoming AI,
Yeah.
but even before AI, it was a press 1 for this,
Yes.
press 2 for that. I mean,
There's
how many
always-
comedy routines have you seen about people talking about press 1, press 150? So
Yes.
this is stuff that has been being replaced well before artificial intelligence. These task-oriented jobs.
You're right. That has not changed.
It's never changed. So the tool augmented jobs versus the left behind jobs. Let's talk about that for a second. There are certain jobs that we know will be left behind. Just like the lady doesn't sit there anymore and unplug and plug in.
I know. I don't want to focus too much on those because that's what all the CEOs are talking about.
And we're going to talk about how that irritates the hell out of us, that they're scaring. I mean, there's a book out there right now called The Anxious Generation.
Yeah.
And The Anxious Generation is based on, a lot of it has to do with, social media and screen time and all this other stuff. Well, those CEOs that are talking on social media and that are getting in front of the cameras and that are doing the podcasts for, the Future of the CEO or whatever that podcast is that's so famous right now. They are causing this next generation to be anxious about how they're going to put food on the table.
Okay, but look, we can boil it down to a very, very simple thing.
Okay.
I mean, we talked about earlier about a broken system. The system's been broken a long time, but the system used to be, and before it was completely broken, was those tasks that we talked about were called entry-level positions. When you got out, it didn't matter. If you got out of college with a degree in journalism and you went to work for the New York Times, you became probably a runner or, running information from one place to the other. You got what they call crap jobs. There's another word for them. But
you made the coffee for everybody.
Well, maybe.
That was the joke.
Maybe, but really it was more about doing the tasks that supposedly allowed you to learn the system from the ground up.
What is the movie Secret of My Success? Where
Yes.
he literally started out in the mailroom.
Yes, and that idea was very common. Well, over time, that has already been drifted away. And as someone who's I've been a consultant, I've worked as an engineer, I've done a various range of tasks because I have my degrees in computer engineering. So, I've been in all aspects of the industry. This idea that they're doing entry-level jobs to train you has been dying a long time. And they haven't been saying they were killing it, but they were killing it. I mean, there was this expectation, like when I graduated from A&M, and this was 1992.
1992.
When I graduated from A&M.
And you were old when you graduated.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I was 27. I wasn't that old. Anyway, I was old for my grade. I felt like the old man in my grade, or in my class. But anyway, I got hired. It was a recession. It was a small recession.
Downturn.
And I got hired because I already had an associate's degree and I'd already been working for small companies and got experience.
Yes.
there was a lot of people that graduated when I did that did not get a job.
They did not.
Some of them went back for master's degrees. Now, it's worse now, but this was 1992. And they hired me. One of the companies I didn't take the job for got really mad because I told them I would take the job and I changed my mind because I got another offer. And they got angry because they wanted me because I already had experience. And I'm like, there's 50 other people that are looking. Can't you hire one of them?
Okay, and even now, I mean, what, 10 years ago?
10
you
years
were
ago,
called?
I was getting jobs. I was getting calls to be a consultant because I used to write device drivers and that was very highly sought after skill set. And so 10 years after I stopped doing that, I still got calls based on resumes that were floating around. And
By headhunters.
I asked the headhunter, I said, look, why don't you call, there's unemployment is high. Why don't you call somebody that's unemployed? I can give you a name of somebody that's unemployed. They said, we're not interested in unemployed people. I said, but you're a placement service. Isn't that your job is to find? He goes, no, companies that hire typically want somebody that's working for another company because they figure you've got the experience that's relevant to them.
Experience.
So
And
this
that's
is not
okay.
a
So
new
our
problem.
son-in-law does some accounting for a placement firm.
Yeah.
And that's what they do too. They literally spend a lot of time trying to steal an employee
Yes.
from another big firm to go to another
So-
big firm because of the
And
experience.
we're beating it to death, but the point is that this is not a new problem. As you said earlier, it's just being accelerated by AI. Entry-level positions have been dying for a while. So let's move on to how we fix this.
Okay, so how do we fix it?
Well, I have my own ideas.
Okay, let's talk about it. Well, first of all,
Yeah.
okay, how did you fix it? Because you went from high school to college. You tried to go to a trade school.
I tried to go to DeVry Institute of Technology in Dallas. I don't even know if that thing exists anymore.
And they kept losing your
I
paperwork.
lost my paperwork 4 or 5 times. You called it divine intervention.
Yes, I
because
did.
I met you after I came back to Llano.
Yes, you did.
But anyway, so I ended up going to the University of Texas to majoring in electrical engineering. I stayed there for a year and a half,
2 years.
and my grades weren't great, but
You were having to work while
I
you were
had
there.
to work, and so I dropped out, and I went and got an associate's degree, and you and I were dating
Now,
then.
hang on. I want to correct you, Jim. You did not drop out of college.
I dropped out of UT.
You dropped out of the college you were in. You transferred universities. You transferred
I
from
went
a
to a community
4-year
college, yes.
university to a 2-year university.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Because what I told you back then, I have to have something I can get a job with.
And you had to make money.
I needed to make money because I couldn't afford to go to University of Texas, and it was cheap back then. I mean,
Yes,
it
it was.
was really cheap back then compared to what it is now, and I still couldn't afford it. So I got my associate's degree, which you were a big part of because we were dating then. And anyway, I got my associate's degree. I got a job. Then I went back to the University of Texas. Then I transferred to A&M. The point is that all the time I'm doing that, we were married and living together, and I had my own little workshop, and I did stuff all the time. I self-trained a lot. I used to tell you that whatever I'm interested in is probably where I'm going to get my next job because they always wanted me to already have the experience. So this whole cycle of you can't get a job unless you have experience, you can't get experience unless you have a job, it's not new.
No.
But the entry-level positions that are going away are really stressing people out, and it's not fair that they expect you to do this, and it's really piling the expenses on the students.
Okay. So the student pays, and we've talked about this before. Our daughter and our youngest son both ended up going into computer science, and some of the ways that they got accepted into their programs is that we were able to put them in camps over the
At the
summers
universities.
at the universities they
Yes.
wanted to go to.
Robotics camps, programming camps.
we in no way have a lot of money. So what did our kids do?
Well, our youngest son sold hot dogs,
Sausage wraps.
sausages,
Kids
wraps.
that got car washes and fundraisers
Yes.
and whatever they had to do to earn money to go to these technical
And-
camps, so that these technical camps looked good on their entrance resumes, so they could then go to the college they wanted to go to.
Because the argument from both sides is whether or not that's fair. Is that the right way? Is the fact that it's so difficult and you're expected to have all this experience and pay for all this experience yourself, and the companies have zero responsibilities? Because that's not the way it used to be.
No, and it is not fair.
I don't think it is.
But I'm gonna say
I
what
think
my mama always said. Nobody ever said life was fair.
I
I
know
mean,
what
it's
they-
like, but the kid that's willing to do that is going to have a leg up over the kid who's like, life's not fair.
Yeah, but you know what?
There
We
has to be a
we
point,
were
though.
also fortunate enough that we had an environment that allowed us to do that. Not everybody
Support system.
does. I mean, we see this at school all the time.
Yeah.
And nowadays, with jobs being as scarce as they are, it's even harder
So what's
for them
happened
to get
is,
relevant experience. Sure, I can get a job flipping burgers, but that's not relevant to getting a degree in electrical engineering.
no,
So,
no, it's not. But so what's happened is the cost of education, not only has the cost of education gone up so much, but now the students are literally having to pay, not just for their education, but now they're having to pay for their experience. They're having to get the summer jobs. They're having to get additional. Yeah.
So many hours I spend learning tools.
Yeah.
I got this whole list here I made. They pay for education, credentials, portfolio, learning tools. They already have to show that they're experienced, and then they get hired, and it's entry level.
And it's still entry level.
Exactly, with all that. So
Yeah.
moving on. I'm sorry.
Okay, my prediction that I made before we go to Jim's reality check.
Blue collar versus.
Yeah, your reality check was about stop romanticizing the trades.
Well, the thing is that I just read an article about it the other day. Google's pouring money into the government's got these programs, all these big companies are pouring money into it. They say we need more blue collar, we need more blue collar. They're trying to romanticize it like blue collar is the next high paying job.
Plumbers,
tell kids
electricians.
don't go to college. Okay. There's nothing wrong. My grandfather was a mechanic. My dad was a mechanic. I come from long line of blue collar, no wealth in my family.
Pipeline workers, oil field workers.
All my relatives were pipeline workers, mechanics, all this other stuff. Blue collar there's nothing romantic about blue collar. It sounds good, but I don't have a single relative. My dad was that way. My mom is because my mom worked at Walmart. Every member I know that's done blue collar work has arthritis in their hands. They have arthritis in their feet from standing up too much.
Knee
replacements. They have back replacement knee. So while we're cutting all with the highest healthcare cost in the world, and we're continuing to try to cut it. We're going to privatize it more. Around here, our healthcare is awful because it's so consolidated with one company.
If it wasn't for that one physician in town.
If it wasn't for Jack Franklin in his office, then we would be dealing with that awful healthcare. My point is that I'm not discouraging blue collar. I tell kids all the time, you can't replace you're not going to replace a plumber, an HVAC, or an electrician typically with a robot or an AI. But as Mike told me once, who was an electrician, you better be ready to move into management or have your own company or get out of it, because the time you're in your 40s, you're going to have arthritis in your hand. He was an electrician and he was clipping all day, clipping wires. Cutting wires. He had arthritis in both hands. He couldn't close his hands.
Then he was only in his 40s.
Well, Mike was in his 50s at the time, but he said it started in his 40s. My dad, before he passed away, his back was so he couldn't even stand up straight.
Right.
My cousin, he can't stand up straight.
And you have all of these CEOs who are romanticizing and saying, well, just go out and get a blue collar job. And it's one of those things that I would love it if one of the people that was saying that on social media or wherever it is they're saying it would go ahead and come on down. Let's pour concrete for a month.
I'll even I am old and I will still do it with them. I'll do it with them for a day. I want to see them survive one day.
Welding.
I was a welder. I did concrete work. I worked on cars.
Construction.
I did home construction. I did all this stuff. And I can tell you there's not a single one of those people that run a company today that I can think of that's ever swung a pick to dig a ditch.
Right.
When it's
for days and days
and days outside. And they're freezing and trying to stay warm by working, or clipped wires till their hands hurt or whatever.
Yeah. So stop romanticizing it.
And I'm not saying don't do it. I know a lot of people that have become very successful financially doing this stuff. I'm just saying go in with your eyes wide open.
Right. It's not a romantic job.
It's not.
You're going to put your time in. You're going to do a whole bunch of dirty stuff.
Think of it like playing.
And then you're going to hopefully figure out how to buy rental properties, get passive income, get your own crew, become the boss. I mean, you need to have a plan. And that's something that, okay, so let's talk about that for a second. We have kids that are graduating.
Oh, by the way, if you want to graduate and be an influencer,
forget it.
They call it the dead internet. All the slop on the internet now that's AI generated, you're not going to get any money as an influencer.
Okay, so for the students that might have listened to this, the student question is, what should a high school student do right now? Because there's not a clear path anymore. But guess what? There wasn't a clear path for you.
Well, there wasn't. And part of the fact that I thought the path wasn't clear is because I came from blue collar and I figured the path was clear to everybody but me. But in
Right.
reality, there wasn't. And that's fair. Okay. There's not a clear path. If there was, everybody would be taking it. But there was this sense that you could go work for a government job like your dad did. He worked for the postal system until he retired. You could go work for go work for Boeing. I had a friend that said Boeing was a lifetime job. All the pension jobs, all the lifetime jobs are gone. They've been killing those for decades.
Yes.
So those paths are all gone. And this idea that companies are going to train you is all gone. They want you to do free interns. Even in the journalism world, I've read that they expect kids to get out of college and do a free internship.
They do it in the political world too.
That's crazy. The only ones that can afford that are people whose mom and dad can foot the bills after they get out of college.
Right.
So again, the path is less clear.
Right. You could get from point A to point C. Point C is available for you, but the path to get there might not go directly through point
I
B.
used to tell my kids life is a house of 1,000 doors. Some decisions you make, doors will open. Some decisions you make will close a door forever.
Yes.
So the problem is you don't know which one to try.
Right.
Okay.
What advice are we going to give a high school student? We're going to tell a high school student, even though you don't want to, you need to go get real experience early on.
Even if you're going to blue collar, and let me tell you how I did that too, because I think it's relevant. I worked as a welder. I knew I was going into computer and technology. I did not want to work as a welder. It was a fun job, but I didn't want to do that. I helped my boss get a computer system picked out, set up, and this is a long time before people had the kind of the online and computer systems they have now, to do his basic job. He had trouble with his calculations for his job estimations. I had a
So you were
I had a
getting,
Commodore 64
oh, Jesus.
that I set up for him.
So you
And-
were getting experience in what you wanted to do by helping the person that you were working for
Correct.
doing the
I-
welding.
there was a kid that worked here for the city, and he wanted to try to move into IT at the city. He shadowed us. for
So
3
in
days.
whatever job, the next piece of advice that I have for high school students, whatever job that you do while you're getting that early experience, go ahead and utilize artificial intelligence while you're doing it. I don't care if you're taking a picture of the menu at the restaurant that you're working at and having an AI give you a better layout of that menu. I don't care how you're doing it, but come up with how you can fit artificial intelligence into the job that you're currently doing.
Please don't buy into the stories that people are giving you now about how it's just going to disappear tomorrow. It's just a fancy autocomplete, all that other stuff. If you say that, it means you haven't used it. These tools are powerful. Companies are not going to, they've spent too much money. There's too much in it. They're not going to stop doing it. And it's going to affect blue collar as well. The question is where do you get that experience from? I mean, the path starts with, do I have the right skill sets? And if the companies aren't going to give them to you, if college isn't going to give it to you, then you're going to have to find a way to get it on your own.
Right. And that's the next
That's
piece
the
of
only way I can
advice.
think of.
That's the next piece of advice is that you have to think beyond the expected path. Okay,
Unfortunately,
so
you do.
we're going to close this by me telling you a little story. Our son-in-law, I don't know if he ever listens to us while we are on a podcast, but he came from a situation that was not idea. And he ended up living with us before he dated our daughter and married our daughter.
Okay, the story's getting too long.
When he was young, he lived with us his senior year in high school.
Matthew
And Jacob were really good friends. But anyway, something that we used to tell Matthew all the time, and I think he really took it to heart. You have to build, and I'm writing on a piece of paper here. You have to build a scaffolding.
I called it a safety net.
It's a safety net,
It's
and it's
multiple
something
nets.
that you ended up doing. You used to tell me all the time, if I can't finish college, I can always go back and be a welder. If I can't finish college, I can always go back and fall back on my associate's degree. I can always fall back on.
The thing I always told the kids was, it's how far do you fall?
Right.
If you don't have any kind of safety net, and I always considered my skills to be my safety net.
Correct.
It's a little tougher nowadays because AI seems to be sucking in all the skills.
Right. Well, let's talk about Matthew again for just 1 second.
Okay.
And if he listens to this, he can have his ego, whatever. He started out by working at an oil changing company, and he changed oil. And that kid could change oil really fast. And we told him, we were like, okay, Matthew, that's great. If you can always go back and be a mechanic. Then we kind of convinced him that he needed to go and like become an electrician because we were like, this is good for you.
Well, we discussed different options and it sounded good to him.
Right. And he had already tried college. He couldn't afford to go to college.
Yes.
He found a company out of Austin that would pay for him to go through his electrical school. And so he did that and he worked for this company. He realized after a couple, 3 years that he really didn't like, his hands were starting to hurt, his knee,
He just didn't
whatever.
like the work.
So then he was
wasn't
like,
afraid of it. He said,
the part that he really liked about it was doing the invoicing, figuring out how much money the person was going to pay, figuring out the length of the wiring and so on. So he's like, I really do like math. I really do like numbers. So then he said, well, I'm going to be an accountant. And he's still young. Okay, Matthew, how are you going to be an accountant? I don't know. He went and got a job for an accounting firm, small accounting firm, doing nothing but entering numbers.
well, it was tax stuff. I mean,
He was entering numbers for a
tax,
CPA.
for taxes.
And
Yes.
from that, he went and he's now finished his bachelor's degree. He is now working on his master's degree. He's sitting for his CPA. He is 30 years old.
31.
31.
Yeah. He took a similar path that I did. I mean, he worked his way through different ways of making a living to decide what he was going to do. My dad always told me, make money with your brains, not your back, because your back won't hold out.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was a mechanic.
I was always envious of you because you were born wanting to be an engineer.
Yeah, well, but part of that was my parent. And some kids don't have parents that encourage them as much as mine did to go to college. Now we've got this kickback. We've got parents, because of what they're hearing from these billionaires, saying, well, don't go to college. It's a waste of time. The politics are bad or whatever. I tell every kid, if you want my advice, stop listening to what's on YouTube and start thinking about what is it that I think I want to do? And what's a potential path for me to get there? Make a plan, work the plan. If the plan doesn't work, change the plan. But stop letting other people tell you that you need to go blue collar because college is a waste of time. No, college is a waste of time if you don't have a plan associated with getting that degree.
All right,
So,
I want you to say that one more time before I say goodbye. Make the plan.
work the plan. If the plan doesn't work, change the plan.
I love it.
Well, we were going to give him a list of a few titles, which we never got around to, but I wanted to throw out a couple. One of the AI titles that I like is AI Systems Integrator. Learning AI tools, and why does that apply? Blue collar or knowledge worker? It applies because integrating AI into the system, whether you're a plumbing company or whether you're a technology company, still has a particular workflow that already exists. You have to integrate it in with. It's what I'm doing at the school, with how I've integrated it in there. So learning how to integrate AI means you have to understand AI's capabilities, what the different options are, how to control costs, all that other stuff. But even if there isn't a title attached to it, you're still the skills that you learn by using these tools to do real things.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you kind of make them up a little bit. I had a conversation with our daughter tonight because she's working toward getting more experience as an AI systems integrator. And one of the things that I told her to try was, she's interested in sleep schedules because she analyzes everything. I told her, make a local project, use Claude Cowork, let it pull in the data from that you want it to pull in. And that way you can get used to this idea of agentic AI helping you solve a problem that's real to you. That skill set transfers elsewhere. Most of the time they do.
I agree. My name is Maurie. I'm here with my husband, Jim. Thank you so much for listening to us ramble about artificial intelligence. We really appreciate it. And we hope that you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.